So now let's talk about launching exploits. So once we determine, how our exploits might work, and make sure that they're not malicious, we can safely launch our attack. So typically you're going to do this by exploiting it from the command line using the appropriate arguments. You also might do it, from Metasploit, for example, as well. When you launch the exploit, it'll mostly print out like text on the screen for like stuff that's happening and all kinds of different updates and stuff. On the status of what's going on the exploit. And if all goes well, it'll be successful, and you'll have what's called a shell or a command line, on your host that's connecting out back out to your target. So let's go see if we can actually launch an exploit and be able to do this. Okay, guys, so you see how you can, search for exploits, download them, check them out, and then actually launch them from the command line manually. But you don't necessarily need to do that. So the goal is actually to make this a little bit easier for you guys. Now, sometimes you may have to do exploits manually, but for the most part, you can use something that's called Metasploit. So the most popular tool for hacking, using the Kali Links box that we're actually using is a program called Metasploit. So Metasploit is really like a one-stop shop for hacking, and it makes it very, very easy, even for a beginner, to do everything that we've done so far. It's gonna give you a little bit less control in a sense. It might not cover as much ground as you can manually, but it allows you to store information effectively. It makes launching attacks a lot easier, and the searching process as far as exploits is a lot more streamlined, and it'll be easier to actually set it up. So let's go check out Metasploit. Okay, guys, so I'm back in my Kali Linux machine. So if you want to launch off Metasploit, you're just gonna type in MSF console, and then you're gonna hit enter. So one thing you might want to also do is just make sure that your Kali Linux machine is actually up to date before you do it. It'll take a second to open depending on your computer speed. I have a lot of things running right now, so it might take a second. But make sure that your system's updated. So just do like a sudo apt update and then sudo apt upgrade, just to make sure that you have everything that you need. I'm gonna let this open up, and then we're gonna pop back really quick and check out Metasploit. So one of the first things that you're actually going to notice about Metasploit is that it has a lot of things, inside of it centrally. So if you recall before when we did the help command, we saw an array of commands that we can actually do. So one of them is db mmap. So you remember that we did mmap scans before. So what we could do is you can import with the db import command and just point to like the file, like if you outputted a file from your mmap scans that you did, you can import it with this command. It would just be db import, db underscore import, and then the path to the file. But we could also do an nmap from here, and it'll actually store everything from that nmap, inside of this database, and we can just access all of it. So let's actually try that out. So let's do a db underscore nmap. And then we know that the target is 192.168.56.104. So we can do this the typical scan that we would do before. So I'm going to do very verbose mode. It doesn't matter what order you put these tags in. Kind of like freestyle it every single time that I do it. So I'm going to do very verbose mode. I'm just going to do a version scan. And I'm going to do ports 1 to 65535. That's what I'm going to do. And then we can go ahead and hit enter. And it's going to start the nmap, and it's going to do the port scan, and then it's also going to do the service scan, so then we know what services are running, and it's going to be stored inside of the Metasploit database. So I'm going to let this run because it's going to take a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back. Okay, guys, so our nmap scan is finished now. So let's check out, what Metasploit put into the database. So one command that we can do if we're scanning multiple hosts, we can just type in the host command, and it'll actually show you a list of the different addresses that you scan. Right now it's just one, but now we know, hey, our Metasploitable server is a part of our database. So now we have information on it. So another command that you can do is services, and this will actually list out all the services that it found. So you don't have to keep going back to a text file or scrolling back to the nmap output. You can just type in services, and it'll print out all the services for all the hosts. And I believe also you can specify by IP address here. We only have one here, of course, but you can specify by IP address, and it'll show you just for that IP address. It just lists all the services. So now, since we're in Metasploit and we have this list right here, so we can use this list to actually go through and try to find some actual exploits to see if we can break into this box. So another command that we can do, kind of like what we do when we did search exploit for the command line attacks or exploit search, we can just type in search and then type in whatever we want to search, kind of like on exploit DB. So right now, let's check out this VSFTPD version 2.3.4. Let's see if that has some type of vulnerability. So VSFTPD 2.3.4, and let's see what comes up. So okay, so a few things came up. What stands out to me after looking at these: VSFTPD version 2.3.4, backdoor command injection. So that might be something that we could use. So if you ever want to find an exploit, so you see over on the left here, there's a column with a pound sign right here for number. So each one of these has a number. If you want to use one of these, so like for example, this one has the number 3 beside it. So we can just type in use 3, and this is going to take us into the exploit. So anytime that you get into an exploit and you don't really know what it is or you don't know how to use it, you can just type in info and it'll give you information typically about it. You can scroll up. Typically, sometimes they'll have like an explanation, like right here, description, figure out the name of the exploit, what platform is for, different information about it. And this is showing you the options right here. I typically like to do that and then read the little description part right here where it tells you, what the exploit is doing exactly, or what it's for. So that's pretty helpful. So what you also can do is just type in options and it'll tell you the options. So with each module, which is what this is inside of Metasploit, there are options that you have to set, and these options are what the exploit is actually going to use when it runs. Think of it as setting variables so that the exploit just automatically knows what to do. So like for example here, the two options are our hosts, which stands for remote hosts, which would be our target, typically, and then our port, which is like what port or what's our destination port. So for this one in particular, it uses FTP, and we know FTP runs over port 21. So the port's already set. So what we need to do is actually set our host variable. So what we can do is just do set our host. You don't have to do it capital. I figured that out a while back. I used to think that you had to, but you really don't. It's smart enough to know. And then you're gonna put the IP address. So 192.168.56.104 in this case. Bam. So now our host is set to that, and you can confirm it by just typing options again, and it'll tell you what it's set to. So you always want to do this before you run an exploit, just to make sure that everything is good to go. So when the exploit is all set up correctly, you have your variables set. What you can do is you can either type in run or you can type in exploit. Typing in exploit feels a little bit cooler, but they both work the same. Doesn't make a difference. So you can type in exploit and hit enter, and then it's actually going to go through and actually attempt the exploit. So right now, you'll see stuff pop out on the screen, just output of what's going on, what's happening. A lot of the times you might run into errors. You might have to go back and fix things or change a port, change an address, change one of the options. Stuff happens like that, and it's just trial and error until you figure it out. That's the beauty of pen testing. So for this one, hey, it said you found a shell, and it looks like it's the root shell, the root account. So we have a session open, which means that we have pretty much access to a command line, on that host. So let's actually see. So one way you can confirm if something actually worked is type in who am I, hit enter. Oh wow, we're root. So we just gained root access to this computer using Metasploit literally within minutes. It's pretty easy, and you can do different things. You can do a present working directory, figure out where you are. You can do an ls, figure out what's here, like what's in the current location. You can since we're root, we can pretty much do whatever we want. We can make ourselves an account. We can do cast as etc/shadow, which is actually the file on Linux that actually holds the hashes for all the user accounts. So there we go. Now we have the hashes. So maybe we could take some of these hashes and try to crack them later on. That's something that we could do. So as you can see, Metasploit is very powerful and it's very quick. So we're able to exploit FTP in a matter of minutes. So that's pretty neat.